Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought I'd show you how I made this fun interactive card using some products from Fawn. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start off with these dies here. We're going to take that largest die, and this is the outside in stitched rectangle Stackables. And for paper we're going to be using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. So I've taken that largest die and I'm going to die cut 3 of these out of the Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm running that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine. So there you can see I have all 3. So now I'm going to lay this on my glass medium mat here. And I just want, you can see that it's 4 inches wide. So I'm going to draw some grid lines on this. And I'm going to draw them at the 2-inch mark. So I'm measuring down 2 inches from the top, and then I'm going to follow the grid lines on my mat to draw my straight line. Then I'm going down 2 more inches, which is really just 2 blocks on that grid there. And then I'm going to go in from the side 2 inches and just down to that 4-inch mark. So I'll have 4 2-inch by 2-inch markings. And this is the Tiny Tags die set from Fawn. So now what I'm going to do is center this star in the center of each of those squares. But I thought it would be easier to draw one more set of lines. So I'm coming in from the side 1 inch from the left side, and I'm going to draw that line, and then from the right side I'm going to come in 1 inch as well. And now what I'm going to be able to do is line up the point of the star with that line and the little V on the star with that line as well. And so I can make sure here that I line all 4 of these up exactly the same way. And then I'm going to come down from the top about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to tape these down with a little bit of purple tape, and I'm going to run those through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the next one here. Again, lining up the point with that line and then the little V on the star with the line as well. And then I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to run all 4 of these through. And again down here I want to be about 1/4 inch down from that line just above it there. And just kind of eyeball and make sure you're lined up with the one above it. This is really easy to do. Just take the time to draw these little markings in here, and it doesn't take long. Now I'm going to save this as my template. Once I do all the work and planning, I like to keep these with my dies so that I have it available when I need it. But if you don't want to keep it as a template, just erase those lines quickly with your Mars eraser and you're good to go. So now I'm going to tape this to that second piece of cardstock that we die cut earlier. Remember, we die cut 3 of these panels. So I'm going to take that second panel and I'm going to tape it together with a little bit of purple tape. Now I can just position these stars right in place, and they will literally lock right down in place there, so you don't even need any tape. I'm going to run it through a couple of times just to make sure I cut through the cardstock. Then I can pop out that little star, and then I'm going to put the die right back into place again, just kind of popping it into place and running that through. And that's going to die cut all 4 of these little stars here. Now I can remove that panel from the back. And one nice thing, it also protects the top of this panel that we're going to be using for our card as well. So don't worry, there won't be any tape on the front of this little panel here. Now with the template, I'm going to set that aside with my dies and keep that together for another project. So now I've got the 4 stars are going to fit right back into place here. So the next thing I want to do is take this panel and I'm going to stamp some stars on here. And these are from the Starry Backdrops stamp set. So I've grabbed the stamps and I'm going to position them on my Fiskars Easy Stamp Press. And this just has some little foam feet on it. So I'm going to press it down and pick up that stamp. And the first thing I want to do is prep this paper a little bit. And I'm going to use my EK Success anti-static powder tool. And I'm just going to make sure I have plenty of powder on that so that the embossing powder doesn't stick where I don't want it to be. Then I'm going to put a little bit of tape on my glass mat. That's with my Tombow mini glue tape. And that'll remove easily when we're done. And then I'm using the Hero Hues Unicorn Pigment Ink Pad. And this is a beautiful bright white ink. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that image. Again, just to use the stamp press, you just press down when you've got it lined up. You just press down and stamp. And now with my Ranger embossing powder in the detail white, I'm going to go ahead and add some embossing powder to this panel. I'm just tapping off the excess, and I'm going to heat set that with the heat tool. Then I'm going to position this back on that tape there so it doesn't move. I'm going to ink up my stamp again, and then I'm going to go ahead and line this up. And I want to make sure that I don't overlap the stars, so I'm just kind of sliding it around till I get it in place. Just going to press that down. And there again, I'm just going to add some embossing powder and emboss this with my heat tool. And this is going to give us a beautiful starry backdrop. So to do my coloring, I'm going to use Blueprint Sketch, Squeeze Lemonade, Picked Raspberry, Peacock Feathers, and Black Soot. And these are the mini distress ink pads. And these are just a water-based ink. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Squeeze Lemonade, and I'm just going to apply random areas of this color. Don't need to be fussy here at all, just kind of little dots or circles of color. Then I'm going to come in with the Picked Raspberry and do the same thing. Now a little bit of the Peacock Feathers. And I'm loving this color combination for other things. I think this would be really pretty with some fairies or something as a background for a fairy card. So now I'm going to add a little bit of that Blueprint Sketch just to darken it up a little bit. And even though this is really pretty, I want to make more of a starry sky. So I'm going to add the Black Soot all around, a little bit more on the four corners. And then without re-inking that applicator tool, I'm just going to go over the top of the whole thing just to kind of mute those colors down a little bit. Now I'm going to take a clean paper towel and buff off the top of this card, and you can see that it's picking up any ink that is sitting on top of that embossing. Again, we're using a water-based ink, so you want to pick up any of that excess ink, and that'll just make those stars nice and bright, white, shiny again. So now with Squeezed Lemonade and Spiced Marmalade, I'm going to ink up these 4 stars. I'm going to add the Squeezed Lemonade all over. And then with the Spiced Marmalade, I'm just going to come in from the side, just pressing my applicator against the glass mat and then coming in and just adding a little bit of ink all around the edges there. And then just going back over it with the Squeezed Lemonade, just to blend that out a little bit. So now I want to create a little bit of color in the background here as well. So I'm going to use those same 2 colors. And again, not being fussy here, I'm just going to add the Squeezed Lemonade. And then just kind of randomly adding a little bit of that Spiced Marmalade, just kind of around the edges of those stars. And that'll just give you a little bit of shadowing there. I'm going to do the same thing down at the bottom here as well. So that looks pretty good there. So now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add a little bit more texture by using my Distress Sprayer And this just has water in it, and I'm just going to spritz that background. I'm going to blot that up with a paper towel, and that's going to give us a beautiful kind of spattered effect. And I'm just adding a little bit more water there. So now for stamps, I'm going to use all of these little planets here, my little astronaut, and then later we'll be using that sentiment, out of this world, and hope your birthday is. And this is from the Out of This World Lawn Fawn Stamp and Die set. So again, I'm adding a little tape to my glass mat. I'm going back to my Fisker's Easy Press. I've added all those stamps to my press, and I'm going to ink those up. Now you could use your Misty here as well. I have my Misty set up with other stamps on it for another project that I'm working on. So I decided to just grab my little stamp press here, and it's really easy to use. So now I'm going to do my coloring with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and I'm using light gray and gray to do this little astronaut. And again, these are a water-based marker, and they have a fine detail or tip on them. And I'm using my blender pen to do all of the blending, but you could use a water brush here as well. And you do want to clean off that blender pen if you're changing colors, or if you want to remove any color, you can just lift the color up and scribble it onto a scrap paper. So if you get too much color, it's really easy to remove some of it. Now I'm just adding a little bit of shadows here and blending it in towards the center. And I don't need to color the whole thing. We're only going to see about half of his body through that little star. So I'm just going to color the top half of him. And I'm just using the light gray in the center there. And then I'm using Persian green to do the rest of his little outfit. And then I'm going to use yellow for his hair. I'm adding the yellow first all over. Then I'm going to come in with the dark oatmeal and just add a little shadow there up above, right underneath that little helmet. And then I'm going to pull that color down. Now with light pink and flesh color, I'm going to do his face. I'm adding a little bit of pink to the cheeks, and then the flesh color up underneath his hairline there, and I'm just going to pull that down and blend that out with the cheeks just a little bit. Now with scarlet red and dark pink, I'm just going to color those little buttons on his outfit here, those little knobs. Now with scarlet red and yellow, I'm going to color the first planet here. And I'm going to add the scarlet red just right along that little halo. And then I'm going to pull that up towards the top. And then I'm going to pull it down towards the bottom. And again, I'm cleaning off the brush as I go just to keep the top the lightest there. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom section. And then for that little halo, I'm going to use pale green. But you could have fun with these planets and color them any colors you want. I just kind of stuck with some whimsical colors. Here I'm going to use dark pink. I'm going to keep the darker color off to one side, very simply just pulling it right across. And then with deep violet, I'm going to do the same thing for this little one. So I'm just kind of keeping the right side of this the lightest. Now I'm going to grab my Cornflower Blue, and this is such a pretty blue. I really love this. I've been using this a lot lately. And I'm just going to, again, color the whole thing in with it. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more of that dark blue to those little dots. And then with green and May green, I'm going to color in the earth. And I'm using the cobalt blue to do the water, the lighter part of the water. And then I'm going to come in with a darker color, which again is the cornflower blue, and just add a little bit of shadowing here. Now for this little rocket ship here, I'm going to start with my light gray and the dark gray that we used earlier. And then I'm just going to blend towards the center. So I'm pulling up from the bottom and down from the top. And then I'm going back to the yellow and scarlet red to do this little window. So now I'm just using that dark pink that we used earlier. And then I'm just going to blend that, kind of keeping the top there the lightest. And then pulling it in towards the center there. And then the last thing is the little flame coming from the little rocket ship here, and I'm using the yellow and scarlet red again. Now this one didn't have a die, so later you'll see that I'm going to just cut that one out separately. So I did grab the coordinating dies for everything else, and I'm going to tape those down with a little bit of purple tape. I'm going to be running those through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut those, but again, here I'm just going to cut around this with my scissors and leave that little white border all the way around just so it'll match everything else that we've already done. So now I want to tuck these images in behind the stars here. So I'm going to be using my glue tube, the Lawn Fawn glue tube, to glue everything down here. I'm just going to position it in place and then just lay it down so I know exactly where that needs to be. And I'm going to be keeping the images towards the middle of the card so that when we open up the little interactive stars, you'll be able to easily see the images behind. Now I'm going to take the glitter pen from Lawn Fawn, and I'm just going to add a little bit of sparkle to some of these images here. And you do want to be careful because when we color with the Zig markers, they are a water-based pen. And this glitter pen is water-based as well. So you want to make sure that you clean it off when you're changing colors. And that's what I'm doing there with the paper towel, just dabbing the tip of it off on a paper towel and cleaning it off. And so now I'm going back to the stamp set and I'm going to take Hope Your Birthday Is. And what I did was I cut that sentiment into the 4 words. So I've got Hope Your Birthday Is separately, and I'm going to stamp them on each of these 4 stars. So I'm just going to place these stamps on an acrylic block, and then I'm going to stamp these words one at a time. And I'm using my VersaFine Onyx black ink to do the stamping here as well. Now if you don't want to cut your stamp into 4 sections, you can always just mask it off with some post-it tape or some purple tape while you ink it up. And then you remove the tape and do your stamping. Now I'm going to be using the Open Me stamp set, and it has this little curve and also a little arrow. So we're going to stamp the little curve on each one of these because I want the arrows to face different ways. So for the two on the right, I want the arrow to face towards the right. And then for the two on the left, I want the arrow to face towards the left so that the recipient will know which way to kind of swing the star away from the card to see what's underneath. So now I'm just taking that little arrow portion and I'm stamping it again towards the right on those two and then towards the left on these two. So now that that's all set, I want to put a piece of window plastic behind here. This is just a piece of clear acetate, and I will give you the information for all of these products down below. And this is the 1/8 inch double-sided tape from Fawn. And I've placed plenty of it around the back here, even around those stars as well, because I don't want that to interfere with the mechanism when we go to swing those little stars away from the card. I want everything here glued down really well. So you can use your glue or the tape. I just find the tape easier when you're dealing with acetate, so you don't get any glue on the acetate because it's kind of hard to remove it if you do. So now I'm going to line up my stars inside this little frame, and I'm using my 1/8 inch hole punch, and I'm just going to punch a hole through that acetate. And I'm going to just move this star around and do that for each of these little openings. And you do want to make sure when you're designing these that you can fit your hole punch right in from the side there. Now you may have other hole punches that are a little bit longer. You could use those as well, but I found this one worked just fine. So now I've got these little star brads, and I've had these in my stash forever. So again, I will try to give you some information on where you can get some of these. Now I'm curling up the tips of each of these little stars because you can see that when I don't curl them up, it sits right down in that opening and it won't swing back and forth. So you want to make sure you curl up those little tips first, and then you'll pop your brad in, slide it through the acetate, and then you can see now it'll swing easily in and out. So again, if you don't curl up the little tips, it won't swing. You really have to reach down in there to get it to move. So I've done all 4 of these, and you do want to check to make sure that it swings easily but not too easily. So play around with that, and you can press a little bit harder on the back of the brad if it's too loose, or just loosen it up if it's a little bit too tight. So check that before you put your card together. So now I've got a little bit of Scotch foam mounting tape, and I put plenty of it all around the back of this panel, and I'm going to attach these two together. So now you can see that that will swing out to the right and those will swing out to the left very easily. And now I'm going to grab that sentiment out of this world. Again, I'm just going to place it on my acrylic block. And I've got a piece of cardstock here that measures 4 inches by about 3/4 of an inch, or maybe 5/8 of an inch. Just enough to fit this little sentiment on. Then I'm going to back that with a little bit of black cardstock. This is just a black 100-pound cardstock. Then I'm going back to my Tombow tape, and I'm just going to tape that to leave a little bit of border on the top and the bottom, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. I'm using my Tim Holtz paper trimmer just to trim this down. So that's going to sit right on the bottom part of this panel. Now apply some tape to the back of that and attach it. So I've got my card here, which is an A2 size card, and then I created a little panel for it. It's just slightly smaller than my card. So the card would measure 4¼ by 5½. And I've got this black panel, and then this panel is going to sit right on top of that. So you can skip that black panel if you wanted, but I thought it added a nice little edging around this. So now I'm going to take my little rocket ship and the flame, and I'm going to pop those up with a little bit of Scotch foam mounting tape. And I'm going to pop up that little planet as well. And then this is going to go right on the center of the card here. And again, that will cause the stars not to swing towards the center. So you kind of have to swing them out towards the sides. So now you can see this card up close. And then you can see that these little stars are just going to slide off to the side here. And I just love the little reveal underneath. It's so much fun. And you could use this design for anything. I don't know, it came to me at like 3 in the morning the other night, and I thought, oh, that would be fun to create this little interactive card. So again, you could use hearts, stars, circles, whatever you want here. So I hope you did enjoy today's card, and I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.